from the side of the banks of the Napo River, which is the largest tributary of the Amazon. Let me know about the audio too. I just got a microphone, and my phone is not showing that it's connected, but I'm pretty sure it is anyways. And so I am doing this secret stream public today. I'm still going to do a secret stream for patrons when we get the computer back tomorrow or the next day, but I can't access my Patreon without my laptop. So I decided to go ahead and do what would be a secret stream in public. And we have been working our way through degree 28 of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry with Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma as our guide. It is at times a bit tedious, but it is extremely revelatory and profound, and there are definitely legitimately very thinly veiled secrets. And you know, while we're on the subject, maybe I should talk a little bit about what exactly India. Hello, India. You know, Masonic secrets are not secrets. They're not always secrets in the sense that people have just agreed not to talk about it. Does this mic sound okay? Somebody let me know in the chat, please. It oftentimes turns out to be things that are very obvious, that are, you know, always in your face, that are on the tip of your nose and the tip of your tongue. Right on, Cynthia. By the way, speaking of patrons, I want to thank Cynthia and Michael for joining the Patreon. By the way, you guys, please join our Patreon if you haven't already. We're going to allow, I think, free access to our Discord, but then there's going to be rooms where patrons can meet. My secret streams are going to start happening in Discord because the YouTube algorithm will get angry with me if I say certain things. So we'll be able to finally get around that. And so the quality of those streams is going to go way up because I have to bite my tongue on these public streams a lot. And it will be such a huge relief to feel like I can actually speak my mind as it is. So do join the Patreon, or going on Third Eye, or you can support us with a one-time contribution via PayPal, Zelle, or you know, whatever. Look in the descriptions to my videos and you can figure out how to support if you would like to. We really appreciate it. We do a lot of charitable work. Actually, by the way, you're not just supporting my, like, what appears to be a permanent vacation. That's not that's not really exactly how it is. And like, for example, last month we nursed a couple of bats back to health, and we adopted a dog that was on death's door and restored it back to health, and we're looking for a home for it now. Right now we're feeding an entire island, like literally an entire island. We didn't mean to do that, but we're here and we discovered there's no food, so we've just been feeding the entire island. So and it's not like we can afford that, so we really do appreciate your help. You know, if my mission is something that you support in spirit, then you should support us literally because I can't keep doing it if I don't get support. So what I was saying about Masonic secrets is that in reality, most of these things are really, really obvious. And given enough time, you know, science has started to uncover a lot of the ideas that were very thinly veiled in Albert Pike's book in 1851. There's quite a bit of stuff in this book that is very predicative of future revelations, particularly when it comes to the nature of light and consciousness. This is something that the ancients understood pretty ubiquitously. You know, sun worship was not just a bunch of primitive people, you know, worshiping the sun because they thought it was a god. It's much more sophisticated than that, and it's much closer to the truth than most people realize until they either take an initiation or it starts speaking to them, which is often the case as well. Consciousness very obviously is born of light. The electromagnetic wave is the fundamental source of all of creation. Matter is light in a standing wave. A few months ago, maybe a year now, someone in a laboratory somewhere figured out how to make matter from nothing by using not nothing, but very, very high energy light. And that should be no surprise. And so, one of the great riddles of creation, what is consciousness? What is the universe? Where did it come from? All of that stuff is the answer is light, and the exact mechanisms behind that. Science is indeed starting to expose and understand, but it's also allowing us to cast the light back into prehistory and realize that this is not new. That, as Albert Pike said in this book, one of my favorite quotes from the book is that man had the truth, and wandering long in the darkness of superstition and myth, he found error. And earlier in this chapter of the Knight of the Sun, or Prince Adept, degree 28, he talks about the actual process, and you can actually see he makes a map of, here is this truth as it was like received back in the garden when people were hollow tubes that were able to make themselves hollow to receive fire from heaven, right? Um, and so the actual process through which that was lost and through which it became confused is very brilliantly delineated. So, by the way, this book, when I got my hands on it, was not readily available, but it is it is supposed to be a secret book. It has a stamp in the front that says that, for Scottish rite use only, to be returned to the lodge upon death or withdrawal of recipient. My theory is that it escaped via like widows whose husband was a Mason. He died, and so they don't know any better, and they give all of his books to a used bookstore, which is how I got this one. And I actually I was looking for it, and I woke up one day after a dream, and I told my girlfriend, my then girlfriend, we're going to this bookstore. I dreamed it was on the shelf to get that book I've been looking for. And we went down there and it was there. So at any rate, it is available pretty widely now. It's usually like $50 for an original copy. So I really strongly advise anyone that's interested in this kind of stuff to get themselves a copy. So it's going to get dark on me. I had to come down here by the river because our Wi-Fi at the house is terrible and I get reception. I might bring the instruments down here and set up and do a stream from the riverbank with a fire later tonight or tomorrow or something. But at any rate, basically where we're at with this right now is we're trying to integrate the belief that God is good, that the universe is fundamentally good. We're trying to integrate that with our actual experience of the universe, which does not suggest that. And my position basically is that it's not true that the universe is underneath it all fundamentally love and good and kindness. It contains that, but it contains everything else that we experience as well. The physical is indeed a reflection of the spiritual, but that means that the spiritual is not all love and light. It's not an eternal sea of happiness and joy and unicorn farts and fairy dust. It is everything that you can possibly conceive of and then some. It is an infinite spectrum of light, crystallized, and in every combination, an infinite number of combinations of those potentials along that spectrum, right? So yeah, as above, so below. Exactly. That's really what that means, So I think where we're at with this is he's kind of slowly drawing the initiate into the realization that as it says in the Old Testament, God says, good and evil createth I those, or something like that. All these do I create, not I just make good, loving happiness and stuff. It's just not reality. So we're working our way towards that understanding, that there is a being from whom everything emanates, that are invisibly and indivisibly united. And this being, at once triplicate and one at the same time, who sums up in himself perfect beauty, perfect truth, and perfect good, is what we call God. God is necessarily the principle of moral truth and of personal morality. Man is moral, that is to say, one endowed with reason and liberty. And with reason, with liberty guided by reason, you even by logic, by way of logic, you would come to morality. Uh, we are capable of virtue, and virtue has with it two principal forms: respect for others and love for others, justice and charity. A creature can possess no real and essential attribute which the Creator does not possess. The effect can draw its reality and existence only from its cause. You can't make cow don't make ham. You is what you am. If you don't like what you has got, drop it in the dirt and let it rot. um, but seriously, if you probably have noticed that it takes money to make money, that like things come from like things, and so that's kind of a clue to to understanding the fundamental nature of the universal mind from which all of this stuff emanates. um, the cause contains in itself at least what is essential in the effect. The characteristic of the effect is inferiority, shortcoming, and imperfection, dependent and derivative. It bears in itself the marks and conditions of dependence, and its imperfection proves the perfection of the cause, or else there would be in the effect something immanent without a cause. God is not a logical being whose nature may be explained by deduction by means of algebraic equations. When setting out with a primary attribute, the attributes of God are deduced one from the other. After the manner of the geometricians and scholastics, we have nothing but abstractions. We must emerge from this empty dialect to arrive at a true and living concept of the universal mind. The first notion which we have of a universal mind, that of an infinite being, is not given us a priori or independently of all experience. It is our consciousness of ourself as at once a being and a limited being that immediately raises us to the conception of a being, the principle of our being, and himself without limits. If the existence that we possess forces us to recur to a cause possessing the same existence in an infinite degree, all the substantial attributes of existence that we possess equally require each an infinite cause. God then is no longer infinite and abstract, indeterminate being, of which reason and the heart cannot lay hold, but a real being, determinate like ourselves, a moral person like ourselves, and the study of our own souls will conduct us, without resort to hypothesis, to a conception of universal mind, both sublime and having a connection with ourselves. Um, I feel like there is a sort of necessity to try to contextualize a lot of this stuff uh, in a sort of Christian modality. And I feel like sometimes that muddies the water. What a lot of spiritual people and people who are seeking illumination, one of the most ubiquitous mistakes that they make is to start with a concept and then try to bend reality and experience to fit within that preconceived mold. And this is how we end up with all of this error. And, even though Albert Pike was clearly a genius, he was a 33rd degree Freemason, he was a brilliant writer. I do not think that everything in here is quite free from the influence of culture, cultural paradigms, religious doctrine. You still see the influence of those things in this work. And I feel like it is our job as the ambassadors, the avatars, even of this greater universal mind, to continue to separate the wheat from the chaff, even from the greats and the giants that have come before us. Right? If that wasn't still necessary, we would know it. I wouldn't have this channel. There would be no point in it. We it is our duty to pick up the torch and light it and continue on. And one of the great errors of religion and religious people is that they believe that they can find some completely perfect, unalterable, pristine doctrine and just adopt it 100% faith and follow that. That is totally insane. There's nothing like that that exists, and there will never be anything like that exists because we are in an ever-changing continuum of infinite or nearly infinite possibility. Hey yo, that is reconfiguring itself, recreating itself, redefining itself, discovering itself in every passing moment. So to think that you're going to find some kind of crystallized relic of absolute truth that is going to serve the purpose of, illuminating your life and existence throughout all of eternity is just not realistic. The real secret doctrine, the real doctrine of Hermes and Thoth, the perennial philosophy of Huxley. This is a living thing that must evolve and change, right? So, I'm just kind of pointing out that I feel like he makes that mistake often in this book where he's trying to make stuff fit into a preconceived notion, for example, of what God is. And you'll notice that it doesn't really work. When he has the real complete illumination and the clarity, and then it comes into conflict and he tries to resolve that conflict and bring it all into like a Christian framework, it fails. I have a lot of subscribers that when they talk about political stuff, the same kind of thing happens. Their actual illuminated understanding comes into conflict with their political indoctrination. And so their writing, their message, their comment will turn into gibberish, like conflicted gibberish. And so this is our real task, is to learn to actually walk in the light of truth, to have the courage, determination, and objectivity to shine the light where we have been unable or unwilling to look, and to reveal the things lurking in the shadows so that real progress can be realized. Um, so, if man be free, God must be as well. It would be strange if, while the creature that has the marvelous power of disposing of himself, of choosing and willing freely, the being that has made him should be subject to a necessary development, the cause of which, though in himself is a sort of abstract mechanical or metaphysical power, inferior to the personal, voluntary cause which we are, and of which we have the clearest consciousness. God is free because we are, but he is not free as we are. He is at once everything that we are and nothing that we are. He possesses the same attributes as we, but extended to infinity. He possesses then an infinite liberty, united to an infinite intelligence, and as his intelligence is infallible, exempt from the uncertainty of deliberation, and perceiving at a glance where the good is, so his liberty accomplishes it spontaneously and without effort. And now there is a necessity to take for granted that we're not taking all of this exactly literally. It is absolutely essential to read between the lines. When Albert Pike uses the word God, he definitely means something closer to universal mind and process. Um, but when he talks about how, this universal mind is free, but not free in the same way we are, what he's talking about is that, it has infinite power and infinite consciousness, but its manifestations are restrained to the strictures of its laws. So this is why when people try to, they want to believe in God, so they ask God, "Show me some impossible shit that couldn't happen," and then when it doesn't happen, they say, "Okay, there's no God." Well, that's not gonna happen. Like there's no Aleister Crowley once wrote that if God could overturn any of his laws, even for a fraction of a second, the entire universe would come undone. So it is not possible and it's not desirable for any of those laws to be suspended to make a point to you or to allow you to achieve something. This is another reason why people think magic isn't real, that consciousness does not have these almost acausal sort of effects that are derivative only of the will of an individual or a collective, right? Some of us know otherwise. But if you try to do the impossible using magic, you will fail. And so that's kind of what he's saying here. That another way that he put it in this book that I absolutely love is they are not just because they are his laws. They're his laws because they are just, which means not fair. He's not saying just in the sense of fair. He's saying the laws of the universe are as they are because if they were any other way, nothing would work. And so this is what he's kind of alluding to when he's saying that, this consciousness, this creation is free, but it's constrained by its own intelligence, which is coming to bear on its being and body, which is the matter and mind and forces of the universe, in such a way as to constrain them to some kind of purpose. And that purpose is this creation that we're wandering around in and experiencing. By the way, you guys, do hit the like button. Please share, subscribe, support us on Patreon. I hit some censorship again yesterday. You guys won't believe this. I'm going to repost the video on YouTube because there's no reason for it. But I made this like clown filter thing talking about how Epstein said, or Bill Gates said he wanted to go to Epstein Island uh, because he was hoping that Epstein would get him a Nobel Prize somehow. So I made a video about that, just a short little clip, posted it on Facebook, and I got 30-day suspensions on phone calls. I can't make calls using Messenger. I can't post in groups. And there's nothing in that video that is like misinformation or sexual or explicit or profane. Nothing at all. I'm just talking about the situation. Um, so you know what I mean? And so that means I can't promote. And I'm shadow banned everywhere. So I really do need you guys to help, to support us financially if you can, and at least to share the videos because the algorithm's not helping me. Facebook won't let me do it myself. I really need you guys. If you think the content I'm making is worthwhile, please help me get it out there because it's an uphill battle. He who speaks the truth has few friends and even fewer if people in high places don't like the truth. So uh, I don't know where we were. I kind of lost my mind when I had to remember all that. Um, oh yeah, we're talking about the yeah, so the laws of nature are as they are because they could not be any other way. And this also sort of lets God off the hook, so to speak, because if you can understand that there are equal parts good and evil in the world because the laws have to be in perfect balance. So that means that the effect is balanced 50-50 and or the cause is 50-50. So the effect is going to be 50-50. And that 50-50 is actually fundamentally just creation and destruction. It is our sort of human labels that determine it to be evil or good or whatever it is. But fundamentally, it's just this process of energy being created and destroyed. That's all that's happening. So, as we assign to God that liberty, which is the basis of our existence, so we also transfer to his character from our own justice and charity. And notice that he's pointing out that a lot of our conceptions of what God must be are just projections. We're just saying, well, human has this characteristic, so our creator must be exactly like us, only better. And what he's trying to very tactfully describe here is that our creator is just like us, only better, but also like, more evil than you can possibly imagine, more jealous, more loving, more every single attribute and characteristic in the entire universe is contained within the universal mind infinitely more than we are possible of expressing it or containing it. Um, uh, in man, there are virtues, in God, attributes. And that was a very large animal. There was an anaconda on the property the other day, and they're not. People have said that there aren't any more around here, but the farmer that owns the island said that he found a 9-foot anaconda over there in the creek 15 days ago. So that's my mission while I'm here, is to find that anaconda and get some video of it. Um, uh, if the idea of wait no, in man there are virtues, and God his attributes. What is in us the laborious conquest of liberty is in him his very nature. The idea of right, the respect paid to the right, are signs of the dignity of our existence. If respect of rights is the very essence of justice, the perfect being must know and respect the rights of the lowest of his creatures, for he assigned them those rights. In God resides the sovereign justice that renders to every one that is due him, not according to deceitful appearances, but according to the truth of things. Okay, so when I say that Albert Pike is being tactful, the way that often presents is um, language that can be a bit obtuse. And it even comes off as like kind of excessive and pretentious until you unravel it and realize that he's just being very cautious about how he is presenting these things. And we have to remember that despite what people have said, one of the main reasons for secrecy in the mystery schools, and particularly in Europe with Freemasonry, is that you could not walk up to another upper class Englishman and say, "Hey, I don't actually believe in Jesus, and the universe is light." You know what I mean? Like we're just the experiencing organs of this greater entity. You know what I mean? People figured that out. They couldn't go talk about it. They would get burned at the stake. Their businesses would get shut down. They couldn't do it. And so, even within the ranks of Freemasonry, and I know this from personal experience, everyone up to the third degree thinks it's just a Christian or charitable organization. They have no idea that there's more to it than that. That is absolutely not a rumor. It's definitely true. But there's good reason for that. Also, Adam Weishaupt, the actual founder of the Illuminati, when they raided his house in 1776, um, and they took his documents, you'll notice that a lot of his communiques appear that he's Christian. But he's not doing that to deceive the world because he's a Satanist, or deceive people because he was evil, because he wasn't. What he was trying to do is fundamentally good, and there's no enlightened person in the world that would have tried to stop the Illuminati. And if you really have a hard time swallowing that, I would suggest to you that if you believe there's all this propaganda and you think that they're using Orwellian tactics, the thing that they would do is convince you that the most powerful information and knowledge and group that you could possibly associate with to liberate humanity is the most evil influence on the planet. That's exactly what they would do, right? And so, why don't more people suspect that? It just kills me. It's so obvious. And if you read Weishaupt's stuff, it becomes true. But all I meant to say was that you can see that he also had to cloak himself in order to survive. Um, so once again, what he's saying is that God is not all good. Whatever this consciousness is that is behind the universe, if you have this conception and then you try to compare it to creation, it is not representative of that. It's obviously not true. Um, Plato well understood that love of God. Oh, Plato well understood that love of God and expresses it in these great words. Let us speak of the cause which led the supreme arranger of the universe to produce and regulate that universe. He was good, and he who is good has no kind of ill will. Exempt from that, he willed that created things should be, as far as possible, like himself. And Christianity, in its turn, said God has so loved men that he has given them his only Son. It is not correct to affirm, as it is often done, that Christianity has in some sort discovered a noble sentiment. We must not lower human nature to raise Christianity. Antiquity knew, described, and practiced charity, the first feature of which, so touching and, thank God, so common, is goodness. As its loftiest one is heroism. Charity is devotion to another, and it is ridiculously senseless to pretend that there ever was an age of the world when the human soul was deprived of that part of its heritage, the power of devotion. But it is certain that Christianity has diffused and popularized this virtue and that before Christ these words were never spoken. Love one another, for that is the whole of the law. Charity proposes justice. He who truly loves his brother respects the right of his brother. But he who does more, he forgets his own. Egoism sells or takes. Love delights in giving. In God, love is what it is in us, but to an infinite degree. God is inexhaustible in his charity, as he is inexhaustible in his essence. The infinite omnipotence and infinite charity, which by an admirable goodwill draws from the bosom of an immense love the favors which it incessantly bestows on the world and on humanity, teaches us that the more we give, the more we possess. God being just and good, he can will nothing but what is good and just. Being omnipotent, whatever he wills, he can do, and consequently does. The world is the work of God, it is therefore perfectly made. Yet there is disorder in the world, and horror, and atrocity that seems to impugn the justice and goodness of God. A principle solidly connected with the very idea of good, tells us that every moral agent deserves reward that he does well, and punishment when he does ill. This principle is universal and necessary. It is absolute. If it does not apply in this world, it is false, or the world is badly ordered. But good actions are not always followed by happiness, nor evil ones by misery. Though often this fact is more apparent than real, through virtue, a war against the passions, full of dignity, but full of sorrow and pain, has the latter as its condition. Yet the pains that follow vice are greater, and virtue conduces most to health, strength, and long life. Through the peaceful conscience that accompanies virtue, creates internal happiness. Though public opinion generally decides correctly on men's characters and rewards virtue with esteem and consideration, and vice with contempt and infamy, though after all justice reigns in the world and the surest road to happiness is that of all virtue, yet there are exceptions. In fact, there is an exception for every positive example. Virtue is not always rewarded, nor vice punished in this life. And so it is getting too dark for me to continue. As you can see, the sun is setting. And what's about to happen, though, spoiler alert, is that he is going to move into explaining how it is that there is necessity, that the world can, in a sense, still be perfect. That it can be true that there's not a grain of sand in the universe that is out of place, and yet. All of these horrors in the world exist. There is a way to understand those things. And the thing is, I think that a lot of people pursue higher consciousness and spirituality and all of this stuff, thinking that at some point, maybe if enough of us do it, all of those things are going to go away. And it's not true. All that is ever going to happen is that you can understand those things and come to terms with them. That is what enlightenment actually is. It is not some ability to just dissolve all of the negativity in the world, but it is the ability to relate to it, understand it, and to dance with all of these laws, as Shiva would in um, a sort of infinite waltz of creation and destruction. Um, a ballet that is as angelic as it is demonic. Um, it's fire and ice. And I want to point out, though, that while I'm talking about the fact that this I think outdated, outmoded concept of deity or creator, that it's that is falsely sort of painting this picture of infinite love, when the reality is more like infinite everything. Um, I am not necessarily saying that it is not possible to raise consciousness in such a way as to align yourself with infinitely good forces. Um, we have to choose the role that we will play ultimately. Uh, People are capable of compartmentalization, and if you're really determined to pursue illumination and gnosis, and you really actually want to know the truth rather than adopting some comforting fairy tale, that's just going to make your life easier, uh, uh, to sleep through, because that's basically what you're going to do if you spend your life lying to yourself. This isn't for you. But the real trick, I think, and what we all really uh, have to do is to have the courage to be objective enough and to put our own, sacred cows and our most coveted beliefs under the real true light of scrutiny and critical thinking and objective evaluation, and really actually make it a practice. One great practice for this is to meet every idea with its opposite, right? So if you think something, immediately conjure up the opposite, put them together, and a third thing will emerge of a higher nature. This is true alchemical thinking. No, I don't know. I don't know really what that is. And even though I might talk like from what sounds like a thelemic perspective a lot, and I definitely, make reference to Aleister Crowley a lot, I definitely don't make any sort of formal I don't have any kind of religion, and I completely kind of avoid all of that. I think that, despite his faults, Crowley just got so close to the truth that anyone that's speaking about these things and really understands it is going to say a lot of the same stuff. You know what I mean? Because it is basically that simple, that there is a consciousness that is inextricably intertwined in the fundamental fabric of the universe throughout us. Um, and our job is to just create an experience in the greatest, widest spectrum possible, and to clearly define ourselves also, so that we always are acting in a way that is, consistent with our highest, truest selves, whatever that may be. And I think a lot of people fear that coming into this kind of objective illumination, where you are willing to confront the universe as it actually is, with all of the beauty and horror and, all of the whole kit and caboodle, warts and all, that if you really, for example, come to realize that evil is necessary, and that in a certain sense there isn't really any punishment for it if it's the role you're supposed to play, what's going to stop you from doing evil? And, to me, that's a completely insane argument, because I have never had any obligation. I was born, raised an outlaw. I was like literally raised by my dad. Like there's no such thing as laws. Like that's not real. I've never had any political obligation. I've never had any religious beliefs, right? But I've always been compelled to decency, like basic decency, and to try to help people and inspire people and to do good in the world. So I think that that is just because I have always luckily been in communique with my holy guardian angel or higher self, or whatever that is. I've always had a fundamental understanding of what my true nature is, and so I sort of instinctively act in accordance with it. So I would hope that you're not a person that can just be blown a little bit in the wind and suddenly find yourself a serial killer because you know that you're not going to go to hell for it. um, that's I don't think we should need that, and I don't think we do need that if we do these things in the proper sequence, right? And so the first step in this process is to know thyself. Know thyself. There's all of the great real spiritual teachers or teachers of the gnosis. If you strip it all down and boil it and concentrate it down to a fundamental thing, know thyself is really at the center and heart of it all, because your real duty and charge is to discover what your fundamental nature and purpose is, and to constrain all of your thoughts and deeds, every breath, to that purpose. If you don't do that, you'll never be happy. You'll always be in conflict with yourself. If you know right now in this present moment that you are not content with your life, that you're not doing what you should be, that you're not living in the way that you were meant to, you are not going to be happy. And that is never going to change no matter what until you fix it. Period. End of story. And then, if everyone has set themselves on the proper course, stars do not collide, right? Every man and woman is a star. And once you have found your true path that is, necessary for you, you will not experience these sort of collisions. And that's why, a lot of people take that "do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law" to be some sort of permission slip to just do whatever you want, even if it's evil. And it's not that at all. It's about really living in a way that is congruent with your deepest, truest self, and never deviating from that no matter what. And if everyone did that, the crisis of purpose that we have that is destroying the United States, it would vanish. All of the fact that the oceans are testing positive for Xanax would stop. It really is the philosopher's stone, the hidden wisdom, true knowledge is just that you have to discover your true purpose and let nothing dissuade you from dedicating yourself to it. And furthermore, to do the thing for the doing of the thing, because pure will, uninfluenced by lust of results, is in every way perfect, right? If you are doing the thing for the love of doing the thing, there is no object to fail to achieve, right? It's you're just doing the thing to be doing the thing. And so you'll never run it, you'll never hit the wall. You never get to that point where you're like, "Oh, I'm not going to make it now." Like, where were you going anyways? You're just doing the thing because it's what you are. A tree is there filtering air and doing its thing because it's a tree and that's what it does. It can't fail at being a tree. It's just a tree. And so that is, the real secret, not only to resolving our own depression and our own internal conflict, but really to bring the world into harmony. You know, and it is natural. The way that we're experiencing culture at the moment is unnatural. The tendency of any system in nature is to homeostasis. So if it's what is the other word for it? All things tend towards oh man, it's not inertia. Um, well, you guys probably have some idea what I'm getting at here. If things are getting more chaotic and more dissonant, somebody's shaking the ant farm, basically, right? All systems. So that means the microcosm and the macrocosm. So, if we do this in ourselves, uh, this is the path to, you know, if a new world is possible, a more sane world, a more purposeful world, a less suffering in the world, that is the one true and fundamental first step to the amelioration of mankind, from slavery, from superstition, from despotism. Um, yeah. So uh, watch my videos on flow state. That really helps too. But I have to go, you guys. I already have to walk back home through the jungle in the dark. I guess I have my phone flashlight. But thank you so much for spending this time with me. Please do hit the like button, share, subscribe, join our Patreon. Our secret streams are going to start taking place in a Discord where I actually can say anything I want. Chris Kelver, Buddhism is one of the lesser evils of organized religion, but anything that has been institutionalized for a reason. And I think Buddhism kind of like is regarded as like the good religion or something that and it's not really true. I've gone to monasteries and I noticed after a couple of days no one was ever smiling. Like, it wasn't there was and there's also such a fixation on suffering. um I think that it's another case of people sort of misunderstanding the fundamental message. I think the Buddha was saying that attachment to idea is the source of all suffering, not attachment to anything and everything. And it does seem to me that attachments to ideologies and doctrines are really, truly the source of all human conflict. So let go, spiral out, ride the spiral to the end. We just may go where no one's been. Thank you so much, and I will see you again soon.